we're going to Google, what is cyberbiosecurity? Cyberbiosecurity is an emerging interdisciplinary field that protects biological systems, data, and infrastructure from cyber threats, bridging cybersecurity and biosecurity to manage risks at the intersection of digital technology and life sciences, covering areas like genomic data, synthetic biology, and automated labs. It addresses vulnerabilities in the bioeconomy like pharma, agriculture, etc., to prevent misuse, espionage, or disruption from digital attacks, ensuring confidentiality, integrity, and availability of biological information and processes. Key areas of focus: bioinformatics security, protecting large biological data sets like genomic and health from theft or manipulation, synthetic biology and biomanufacturing, securing automated labs, DNA sequencing systems, and facilities producing vaccines/therapeutics from cyber attacks, says Cyberbiosecurity and Tripwire. Cyber physical systems, safeguarding the digital controls of biological research equipment. Data integrity, ensuring DNA data storage and retrieval systems aren't compromised. Why it's important: convergence. Biological research is increasingly digitized, creating new attack surfaces. National security, protects critical infrastructure, public health, and prevents weaponization of biology. Economic security, safeguards the growing bioeconomy, pharma, energy, food, from intellectual property theft and distribution. Here are the examples of threats: malware and DNA sequencing machines, espionage targeting research data for economical or military gain, compromising electronic health records or patient data systems, manipulation of biomanufacturing processes. Let's click on this link and read. What is cyberbiosecurity? Cyberbiosecurity can be defined as the emerging discipline dedicated to identifying, assessing, and mitigating risks that arise where biological systems and digital technologies converge. It encompasses the protection of biological data, research, processes, and infrastructure from cyber threats that could compromise their confidentiality, integrity, or availability. This includes threats such as unauthorized access to genomic databases, manipulation of laboratory automation systems, and cyber-enabled distribution of biomanufacturing or synthetic biology platforms. Unlike traditional cybersecurity or biosafety alone, cyberbiosecurity is inherently interdisciplinary. It merges principles from cybersecurity, biosecurity, biosafety, and risk management to address the unique vulnerabilities that arise when biological research and production are digitally integrated. Its scope includes both technical safeguards and governance frameworks. Cyberbiosecurity, biosecurity, biosafety. Which is the difference? In the evolving landscape of global risk, the concepts of biosecurity and biosafety have moved far from the periphery of scientific and medical discourse into the core of enterprise risk management, compliance frameworks, and national security considerations. As global threats become increasingly transdisciplinary, legal, risk, and compliance experts must be well versed in these domains, not merely as abstract health or environmental concerns, but as actionable operational risks with legal, regulatory, and reputational consequences. Biosafety refers to the principles, technologies, and practices implemented to prevent the unintentional exposure to or release of biological agents and toxins. It is primarily concerned with protecting individuals, communities, and the environment from harm caused by handling, storing, transporting, or disposing of potentially hazardous biological materials. Biosafety measures are typically embedded in laboratory protocols, healthcare facilities, and biotechnological processes where microorganisms, viruses, genetically modified organisms, or biological toxins are present. One core objective of biosafety is the prevention of biological incidences, such as laboratory-acquired infections, environmental contamination, or cross-contamination in research settings. In contrast, biosecurity addresses the prevention of the deliberate misuse of biological agents and toxins. It is focused on protecting biological materials from theft, sabotage, diversion, or malevolent use, particularly in the context of bioterrorism, state-sponsored biological warfare, or insider threats. Biosecurity is less about laboratory safety and more about risk intelligence, access control, background checks, secure supply chains, and the governance of dual-use research. Dual-use research. Research that can be used for both beneficial and harmful purposes. From a compliance and legal perspective, biosecurity intersects with export control laws, anti-terrorism statutes, and international treaties, such as the Biological Weapons Convention. Organizations involved in biotechnology, pharmaceuticals, agriculture, and defense are particularly exposed as they may possess materials or knowledge with dual-use potential. For these entities, the risk of a breach in biosecurity is not limited to criminal liability, but may extend to sanctions, reputational damage, and loss of government contracts. The distinction between biosafety and biosecurity, while conceptually clear, is often blurred in practice. Both share the ultimate aim of protecting life and maintaining societal stability, and both rely on overlapping infrastructures of governance, education, and oversight. However, their core assumptions differ. Biosafety assumes good intent, but guards against error, while biosecurity assumes the possibility of hostile intent and guards against exploitation. For legal, risk, and compliance professionals, the distinction carries significant implications. Biosafety compliance failures are typically treated as operational deficiencies, remediated through improved training, process redesign, or infrastructure upgrades. Biosecurity failures, by contrast, may lead to criminal investigations, counterintelligence scrutiny, and high-level political consequences. In a world of increasing bioeconomic complexity, the lines between innocent research and dangerous capability become increasingly porous. The COVID-19 pandemic underscored the necessity of treating biosafety and biosecurity as integral components of national and corporate resilience. While the origins of the virus remain debated, the event served as a global stress test for both regimes. Biosafety protocols were revealed to be inconsistently enforced across regions, and biosecurity weaknesses, particularly the lack of transparency in high-risk labs and insufficient global oversight, became apparent. Cyberbiosecurity is a domain that demands attention and strategic response. Understanding cyberbiosecurity and how it differs from but relates to biosafety and biosecurity is essential to designing resilient systems, avoiding regulatory failures, and defending against both current and future threats. Biosafety and biosecurity are largely concerned with the physical world, the biological agent itself, the infrastructure in which it is housed, and the people with authorized access to it. Cyberbiosecurity, by contrast, addresses the unique vulnerabilities that arise at the intersection of cyberspace and biological sciences. It includes the protection of digital systems that store, transmit, or analyze biological data, as well as the security of computational platforms used to design, synthesize, or manipulate biological materials. This includes genomic databases, DNA synthesis services, artificial intelligence models used in drug development, and software-controlled laboratory automation. In cyberbiosecurity, the target is often digital, but the consequences can be profoundly biological. Again, the target is often digital, but the consequences can be profoundly biological. A successful cyber attack may result in the theft of genetic blueprints, the remote manipulation of biofabrication processes, or the corruption of data used in diagnostics or epidemiological modeling. To make it clear, the difference between cyber biosecurity and traditional biosecurity lies in the threat vector. Biosecurity typically assumes a human actor attempting to access biological materials through physical means, such as unauthorized entry to a lab. Cyber biosecurity deals with threats that originate in the digital domain. These include state-sponsored espionage, ransomware attacks on pharmaceutical facilities, the exploitation of software vulnerabilities and biomanufacturing equipment, and the infiltration of cloud-based platforms used to store sensitive genomic data. For legal, risk, and compliance professionals, the implications are profound. Data protection regulations, or national genomic laws, intersect directly with cyber biosecurity risk. An attack on genomic database is not only a cybersecurity breach, but potentially a violation of laws. Furthermore, if a synthetic biology company unknowingly receives manipulated digital sequences and produces dangerous organisms, the liability may extend across jurisdictions and regulatory regimes, touching upon export controls, biosafety violations, and criminal negligence. Cyber biosecurity also challenges existing compliance paradigms, but it straddles disciplines that traditionally operate in silos. IT security teams may not be trained to assess biological risk. Laboratory managers may be unaware of the vulnerabilities of cloud platforms or machine learning tools they rely on. Even within national governance structures, cyber risk and biorisk are often handled by entirely different agencies. This creates systemic gaps where novel threat actors, including cybercriminals, terrorist networks, or hostile state actors, can exploit the seams between sectors. Moreover, as DNA synthesis and editing technologies become cheaper and more accessible, the risk of digital to biological conversion increases. DNA sequences can now be transmitted as digital code and printed as physical biological material. If a malicious actor compromises the digital design files of a DNA synthesis company, they could potentially introduce harmful agents into the production line. The once abstract concept of a cyber attack leading to a bio incident is no longer theoretical. It is operationally feasible. From a governance perspective, cyber biosecurity requires a multi-layered response. It is not sufficient to simply apply cybersecurity principles to biological contexts. Rather, organizations must implement integrated risk assessment models that consider the full range of potential exploitations, from cyber intrusions that affect data integrity to insider threats that bridge the cyber and physical realms. Risk officers must work closely with both chief information security officers and laboratory directors to assess vulnerabilities in areas such as device firmware, laboratory automation, and third-party software integrations. Cyber biosecurity represents the frontier of biological risk in the digital age. It is not simply a new form of cybersecurity, nor a digital extension of biosecurity. It is an independent and urgent risk domain defined by its hybrid nature and characterized by its potentially cascading consequences. What is AI-driven bioengineering, and why is cyberbiosecurity so important? Bioengineering is an interdisciplinary field that applies principles of engineering, biology, and physical sciences to design, develop, and optimize systems, devices, and technologies for biological and medical applications. It bridges the gap between engineering and life sciences, enabling the creation of solutions that address challenges in healthcare, biotechnology, agriculture, environmental sustainability, and more. At its core, bioengineering involves the analysis and manipulation of biological systems, such as cells, tissues, organs, or entire organisms, to achieve specific functional outcomes. This includes the development of medical devices, prosthetics, implants, diagnostic tools, tissue engineering and regenerative medicine, synthetic biology, designing organisms to produce pharmaceuticals or biofuels, genetic engineering, and bioprocess engineering for large-scale production of biological products. AI-driven bioengineering refers to the application of artificial intelligence, AI techniques, such as machine learning, deep learning, and neural networks, to design, optimize, and accelerate processes in biological engineering. It combines computational power with biological insight to enhance the development and manipulation of biological systems, from gene editing and metabolical pathway design to synthetic biology and biomanufacturing. Data poisoning and model manipulation represents another class of cyberbiosecurity threats unique to AI-driven systems. If an attacker gains access to training data or cloud-based model infrastructure, they can introduce malicious inputs that degrade the accuracy of predictions, undermine research integrity, or misdirect biological experiments. In a high-stakes settings, such as drug discovery or biodefense, corrupted AI outputs could result in wasted resources, flawed clinical decisions, and even public health emergencies. Here they talk about what is genomics and why is cyberbiosecurity so important. Genomics is the branch of molecular biology focused on the comprehensive study of genomes, the complete set of DNA, including all of an organism's genes. It involves the sequencing, analysis, interpretation, and comparison of genomes to understand the structure, function, evolution, and mapping of genetic material. Unlike traditional genetics, which often examines individual genes or small groups of genes, genomics takes a holistic approach. It explores how all genes interact with each other and with the environment, influencing traits, diseases, and biological processes at the systems level. Genomics encompasses various subfields, including functional genomics, studying gene expression and regulation, comparative genomics, comparing genomes across species, and epigenomics, examining chemical modifications that affect gene activity without altering the DNA sequence. Genomics is foundational to advances in personalized medicine, biotechnology, agriculture, and epidemiology. As this data becomes increasingly digitized, shared across networks, and stored in cloud environments, it also becomes a prime target for cyber threats. In this context, cyberbiosecurity is critical to protect the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of genomic assets. One major concern is the targeting of national genomic databases and precision medicine initiatives. These databases often contain genomic profiles of millions of individuals and are valuable not only for medical research, but also for geopolitical leverage. A breach of such a repository could expose individuals to genetic discrimination, threaten public trust, and undermine national research competitiveness. The theft of ethnic or population-specific genomic data may also have implications for military and intelligence planning in the context of emerging biological warfare technologies. Here they talk about the legal void. And down here are some of the companies that admit to cybersecurity.